Hey, welcome to the K-12 Blackboard Innovative Teaching Series. Today, the presentation is from Traffic Cop to Traffic Engineer. My name is Katie Gallagher, and I'm the Director of Product Marketing for Teaching and Learning at Blackboard K-12. Thank you to Ryan McLaughlin from the K-12 Field Marketing Team, who will be helping answer questions today in the chat. We'll be joining you for the Spring K-12 Blackboard Innovative Teaching Series. We're always open to new ideas for topics for the series, so please let us know if you're interested in presenting a session in the fall, or if you have a topic you'd like to see. Just send us an email or a tweet. Every session in the series is recorded. You can find all the sessions at tinyurl.com/bits-K-12 with our playlists. The most recent presentation will always move to the top of that playlist. And we invite each and every one of you to sign up today for our community group, our new community site for the K-12 Blackboard Innovative Teaching Series. We're excited to move this group from course sites to this new community site, and it's designed to augment the series and create an avenue for ongoing collaboration and dialogue amongst this group. So please use this link and sign up for this today. All of the postings of videos for the series are found, as well as PDFs of the slides. So please join our community group today. Just a reminder that registration for Blackboard World is now open. Blackboard World this year will be from July 12th through the 14th in Las Vegas, and we are building out the most robust and exciting K-12 program ever. So we'd really like you to join us for BB World this summer. It's 3 fun, jam-packed filled days, and we'll be hosting a pre-conference session on the first day on July 12th of the program that's free for all K-12 BB World attendees on blended learning. So it's an added advantage of participating in BB World on site this year. We have a lot of great sessions lined up for the Spring Blackboard Innovative Teaching Series for K-12. Next week, join us again with Cecil County Public Schools, and you'll see a lot of the other great sessions. You can register for the rest of the sessions of the series or any one session in which you're interested in. Today, we're very pleased to have Stacey Brasfield, a chemistry teacher from Arlington Public Schools, Virginia. She's been teaching all levels of chemistry and mathematics in Arlington Public Schools since 1987. She's a teacher researcher focused primarily on developing teaching strategies and classroom activities that promote the higher level of reasoning skills students need to become lifelong learners. She's passionate about enhancing students' interest in science and learning through engaging classroom instruction and state-of-the-art teaching and technology tools. Prior to teaching, she was a health physicist in the Radiation Safety Department at the Armed Forces Radiobiology Research Institute. She's earned both her BS in chemistry and her MA in teaching at George Mason University. So we're really pleased to have Stacey with us today. With that, I will hand it over to Stacey. Stacey, thank you so much for joining us and for the whole Arlington team here to support you.
Thank you, Katie. It's nice to be here. And thank you, everyone, for joining me today. As Katie said, I'm Stacey Brasfield, and I teach chemistry and AP chemistry at Washington Lee High School in Arlington, Virginia. Today, what I wanted to share with you is how my classroom and my teaching has evolved once students had more digital devices, and I could use more of the Blackboard tools to provide a truly blended learning experience. So I'm calling this transition from traffic cop to traffic engineer, as the learning is flowing more efficiently in my classroom now. Katie mentioned my background. After I earned my chemistry degree, I began work as a health physicist and even earned my license to become a nuclear reactor operator. But I really wanted to switch to teaching, and that's what I did in 1987. Throughout my teaching career, I've practiced many teaching methodologies, such as cooperative learning, which uses the positive interdependence of cooperative groups to promote student engagement and problem-solving skill development, and also understanding by design, which focuses on a framework of essential questions to foster enduring understandings. So I see myself as a constructivist, which means I think we all learn best by engaging in meaningful experiences, which is what I try to design for my students. As Confucius says, I hear and I forget, I see and I remember, I do and I understand. So some of my core values, the reason I mention this is because with blended learning, I can implement more efficiently my core values. And I feel that learning and problem solving are empowering, and they build confidence in students. These skills, lifelong learning, and the increased confidence that comes also improves students' test scores. So I feel I need to give students challenging, but that challenging work is best done during class time when support is available. A positive learning atmosphere invites students to take risks and make intellectual leaps. So that's what we try to do. And then student-centered, differentiated instruction is more efficient and engaging. As such, I feel that homework is best only in limited circumstances, such as reflecting, rewriting, reviewing, or organizing. In the traditional classroom, the teacher is the source of information, and we set the agenda. We're at the center, directing traffic. One of my frustrations using this model is its inefficiencies. When I'm lecturing, these are passive and minimally energized. Though some are focused on learning, of course, many are only passively engaged at best. You can tell because when you ask them to turn into an activity, it takes them a long time to gear up for that work. Sometimes it's like, what are we doing? What are we doing? You know, and then it just takes them a long time to get up. And it sort of reminds me of my computer when I'm pulling rest mode. It just seems to take a while to get there. So I know they weren't really actively engaged. And that means that there's less time in class for students to grapple with problems. And it often translates into too much homework because students end up having to finish it on their own time. Another problem with the traditional classroom is that the teacher is responsible for the pace. So when I'm teaching the whole group together, I either have to let the slowest student, determine the pace, and I wait for them to catch up, so make sure they're on task, or maybe I move on without them. And so that's always a bit of a conundrum. Do you make the faster students wait for the slower students? Do you move without them and help catch them up later? It's always difficult to make those decisions on how to pace the class. So it reminds me of just one lane of traffic. You know, only one driver can slow everyone down. And it was my empathy for the faster students that nudged me into trying to find a better way. So the better way is the blended classroom. Blended learning corrects for these issues because I can put more of the instruction and the directions for those activities on the Blackboard Learning Management System. And that means I'm not directing the traffic flow in person, I'm programming it ahead of time with the help of the Blackboard. During class then, students spend more time on activities, and especially inquiry activities, and these generate curiosity and keep students interested in discovering the outcome. Teaching the students how to work together in groups keeps them engaged academically and socially, and so they're using more of their brain and learning becomes more memorable. Another plus is the dynamic of small groups increases the intrinsic rewards for participation. It reduces the benefits of resistance as they're impeding their peers. And so students are less likely to procrastinate. Most often, my groups finish the work during class time, so they have little or no homework. Blending learning in this way changes my role as the teacher. It permits differentiation because now students can proceed at their own pace. So it's sort of like fast lanes and slow lanes. It leaves me with the ability to focus on the weaker groups more effectively without calling them out in front of the whole class or keeping the class waiting. Blended learning also permits me to keep students, to give the students immediate feedback, either in person or through the Blackboard. And this serves as a reality check for those students, and it reduces stress because students have more control over their learning process. So blended learning and cooperative groups gets the teacher out of the center or out of the intersection so that the teacher's role becomes a supporting role. What that does is it means the students understand a little bit better how they have, since they have control over their learning and the pacing, that they have a little bit more responsibility on their own shoulders to make good decisions. And they often help their peers and just collaborate a little bit better and use that class time more efficiently. So in the collaborative class, the teacher is no longer the sole source of information. And here's another way my role changed is instead of answering every single question, I can encourage the students to ask each other, what does your group members think? You know, did you ask your group? What do they think? And then sometimes they're like, oh yeah, I'll do that. And so they go back and check with their group members, and sometimes their group members knew the answer, and so they begin helping each other. Other times they might say, well, I did check with my group members, and they don't know either. And so then I know, well, maybe I better go help that group so I can help them all together. So what are some tools and features that Blackboard has to blend the K-12 class? One tool is Blackboard Groups. I like to use Blackboard Groups for group assignments, like lab conclusions, maybe summaries, reflections, and they can be used to great effect with blogs and discussion board. So what group assignments does, and especially when you put it on Blackboard as opposed to just arranging them informally into groups, is it promotes collaboration as the students are dependent on each other. The real plus, besides just putting them into groups without the Blackboard, once they're in groups in Blackboard, the real plus is the organization that the Blackboard provides. And so it reduces my workload as the teacher, as it results in fewer papers to grade, which is always good. And the work is all organized in the Blackboard gradebook. So the students in the group, they still have their own paper. Each student can see their own paper that they submitted as a group, and they can also see their grade and the grading comments that I've left them. They can find it at any time if they want to look back on it or review it again. And I can find it anytime as well, so I don't have to search my inbox or search Google Groups or whatever. It's all very organized on Blackboard. The Blackboard gradebook also has smart views, so I can see the group's grades, either by group or by class. And I can, this is one thing I really like, you can grade the papers in the order they're turned in using the needs grading feature. And so that increases turnaround time. So I can get the first papers back first and the last papers back last. Blackboard keeps track of it all for me, so it just helps with the organization. What it also does is it provides a mechanism for differentiation. For example, earlier in the year I had 15 groups, and 14 of the 15 papers were really pretty good, but one of them wasn't. And so when I gave that group feedback that they had missed a few points, they said, well, can we do it over? And when you only have 14 or 15 papers instead of 58, you know, it's really easy to say, sure, try it again and give them another chance. So do-overs are possible. Here's another slide. On this slide, you can see my a screenshot of one of my groups pages. You can see that I tend to change the groups often. And I like to change, sometimes I like to use the heterogeneous groups. Sometimes I like to set them up ahead of time. But it's nice to change the groups a lot, because then once the students all know each other, you have a more collaborative classroom climate. And it keeps the students from getting into a routine. You know, it shakes things up a bit. So this groups tool makes the process all rather simple, because I can assign the students to the group ahead of time or on the spot with the self-enroll feature. For example, one time I wanted more homogeneous groupings for a particular activity. It was a review activity. And so I grouped them according to tables. I said, okay, who in the class is really comfortable with this material right now and you're ready for a quiz this second? and a few hands, not many, but a few hands went up. And so I said, you guys, you go to table 1. And then I said, now who's pretty comfortable with it, but you're not quite ready for a test. You want to review a little bit before you test on it. And so a few more hands went up. So you guys go to tables 2 and 3 and 4. And then who in this class is still a little bit confused on this, and you really could use a little more help? So anyway, once I divided them this way and they went to their tables, then they could self-enroll according to their table number. And so that worked pretty well. Another tool that I've found helpful is Blackboard Assignments. And here I'd like to thank my colleague, Mary Fretz, for piloting this tool and persuading me to give it a try with our science project work. At Washington, all of the intensified chemistry students are required to do an independent research project. And these projects may or may not turn into a science fair project. So we break this process down into about 5 checkpoints. And this year I had over 50 projects. So that can be a pretty big, overwhelming task to organize, to keep track of all those assignments. But Blackboard made it work. Mary and I used Blackboard Assignments at each checkpoint. And we asked the students to upload a PDF file of their work for that checkpoint. And then I used the needs grading tool to give my students feedback in the order that the work was received. And then, in addition to the feedback, a grade. All of this work was still accessible to both me and the student, which made it really nice because we both had access to the work at the same time, which was great. Then, when the final paper was due, the students, for the most part, they had all their pieces they needed to put it all together and to modify it according to my comments. And I found that fewer students had problems with procrastination this year because they could just go ahead and get it done and upload it, and I would go ahead and grade it. And so they weren't waiting for the deadline to get going. I was amazed. At one deadline, had over half my students had already submitted a day before the deadline. So that was definitely a first. Another thing Mary and I used was the Safe Assign tool for the research component to help us check for plagiarism. And here's one thing I really liked. I don't know if you guys ever take home piles and piles of papers to grade. Well, it was all on Blackboard, so I could just click on it and grade it, and no dusty papers, no coffee spills. It was all just very clean and easy as I just did it online. Here's a quote I wanted to share with you on this next slide. Suchana went to Princeton after Washington and Lee, and she was talking about a class at Princeton, and she said, I was the only one in the class who knew how to write a science paper. I had a lot of practice in high school, and I just figured it was something everybody knew how to do. I did really well, but other people struggled. I'm sure it's because my teachers at W&L taught me how to write. And so I think it speaks to the importance of science writing in school, and that's very time-consuming for teachers to do well. And that's why I really love the Blackboard Assignments, because that made that something that we could do without being too overwhelmed. Here I have a screenshot of another way I use the Blackboard Assignments once I saw how well it works. So the story behind this one is that I have long done an activity where I have students investigate a burning candle in chemistry. And I use that activity, they collect some data and they draw some conclusions about how the candle works. And then I use that activity to teach how to write a good lab conclusion. So what I did this year was I recorded a short video lesson on how to write a good explanation. And I said a good explanation uses claims, evidence, and reasoning, the CER model. So the students use class time to watch the video together in groups, and then they applied that CER model together with their data they had collected to explain how the candle burned. What I like about this screenshot is you can see the view that the students see, and it presents the points possible, the directions are clearly there, and then also a grading rubric that they can look at to set them up for what they need to include to get the best point value. So doing it this way instead of individually with lab books, it allowed the students to grapple with it together under my supervision during class time. Stronger students could model the process for the weaker ones. And so it meant I had fewer papers to read. That was 14 papers instead of 56, even though, of course, I have more students now than ever. Okay, so here's a screenshot of the grading rubric I used for evaluating one of the research project checkpoints. I just wanted you to see kind of what it looks like when you make a rubric. This was for our checkpoint for data collection and results. I was fortunate enough to be able to collaborate with the other chemistry teachers involved to set up these rubrics, and even though it does take quite a bit of time to set them up, I felt like that additional layer of communication for the students set them up for success, and the final product was much more pleasurable to grade, and the grades were higher. And in the end, it takes less time because you can just read through the papers and they're good. It's good work. It's very satisfying. Okay. And this is my favorite tool, the Blackboard tests. And that's why I put a little heart here, because it's my favorite thing, my favorite tool on Blackboard. I've been using this tool for the longest time, and I kind of got the idea to use this tool from thinking about games and how motivated are when they play games, and they're so interested in learning the game, and they don't seem to care if they mess up or if they die in the game. And I just thought, if only I could have some of that in my teaching, in my classroom. I wish we had chemistry games and things like this. And so what I found when I studied it a little more is that people willingly take more risks when playing games because the games give quick feedback and rewards. And so the players don't feel as discouraged by failures because of that immediate feedback. It's just a quick setback that's quickly overcome once they learn the game, and then soon they're leaping over that to the next level. And so they don't mind repeating over and over because they know there's going to be a quick reward. So I don't yet have ways to learn chemistry playing games, though I still hope to do one day. But I was able to tap into that intrinsic motivation of the quick feedback and quick turnaround time by making some practice tests with the Blackboard test tool. So let me tell you about the tool. First of all, you have lots of question types. It's not just multiple choice. It's matching, multiple answer, ordering, hotspot, fill in the blank, fill in multiple blanks, short answers, essays, lots of cool tools. And you can import question sets from ExamView to have bigger sets of questions if you need them. You can use random blocks so that each student taking a test is getting different questions on the topic. You can add feedback, and that's of course what I love. You can permit retakes, and there's options for grading. Do you keep the last grade or the highest grade, the first grade? So there's lots of options for the way you want to set them up. And of course what I like to do is I like to do the practice test so that they can do them twice after looking at their score and their feedback. So immediately upon submitting the test, they get to see their score and they get some feedback from me. What I usually do is just put in hints as to how they would go about figuring out the answer to this question. And I usually give the hints both for the whether they got the answer correct or incorrect if it's multiple choice, because sometimes with multiple choice they get the answer correct by accident. So I want to give those students the feedback as well, just in case they still need to figure out how to do that question. So that's been really a popular thing. And I have here a quote from Gino from last year. Gino said he likes my Blackboard practice test where there's 2 attempts because it gave him a chance to learn the material and then try again. He said that sometimes he thought he was ready for the test, but because he was keeping up and everything made sense, but then he would try the Blackboard practice test and get some questions wrong. And so it was better for him to do it that way and find out before the test that he still needed to study a little bit more than to wait until he'd already taken the test and then he's got this big, big problem. Another student of mine told me that she struggled with anxiety and she often over-prepared for tests. So the Blackboard practice test for her was stress reducing because when she thought maybe she was ready, she would take the practice test and see how she did. And if she was, if she got a good score, she knew she was ready and she could just relax and go to bed and stop studying and she was ready for the test. But if she got some wrong, she knew where to aim her studying. So she felt like that was very, very helpful to target her preparation. I have to say, this year, since the students, more of the students have the devices, I'm also using the testing tool for actual testing during class time and also for just quick checkpoint assignments. So I'm using the tools in more ways. When I use it for testing, they can only take the test once, and there's usually a time limit. So you can, change those parameters as you see fit, which is really cool. Okay, enough about testing. Learning modules. So learning modules is another tool I started using this year. And that's because I was doing more things sequentially. And so with the learning modules, you can line things up so that the students know what goes first, what goes second, what goes third. And that's a way of directing the traffic as well. And so you can craft your course so many different ways. One thing, for example, I use with the learning module, one sequence I did was I made a, 10 to 15 minute video lesson, and I had skeleton notes for students to fill in while they were watching the video lesson. And that's where the framework of the notes or the outline of the notes is given to the students, but they need to fill in, say, the meat or the details of the lesson as they're watching the video. And then maybe there was a set of practice problems to try after watching the video, maybe a second video lesson to build on that first one, and then a group activity with a reflection followed by a practice test. So this is, a sequence that you can set up on the learning modules, and students can just keep going with it as they're ready. Here's a screenshot on this next slide of a learning module I used in the fall when we were studying significant figures. And so one thing I like about how this is set up is you can see over here on the left that there's a table of contents. And that's helpful if you want to post a longer sequence of assignments, and so the students know what's available, and they may not know it if you're just using folders because they may not realize they need to scroll down, especially if they're looking at their phone. So this way they can see, oh, there's more after the first day. This is just the first day. There's another thing to scroll down to for the second day. So that really helps, I think, with communication and organization. This says this is one day, but you should probably know that we have 90-minute blocks, so it's an hour and a half. Those 3 things there was for an hour and a half amount of time. Okay. So additional benefits of blending your course and using the organization of the learning management system is that you can do reteaching. And I've posted this winter break assignment to show you as an example. It's not too uncommon that when you, in chemistry, when I teach moles, half the class or more might really get it and they're ready to move on. And another class, they still need a little bit more practice on it. And so you can differentiate instruction this way. And all of the lessons or activities that you've used are still available to the students to use. to help them spend some more time on a topic. It empowers them so they know it's all there, and if they need to learn it, they can go back and try again or get more practice. So reteaching helps you to differentiate. Subplans. So I don't know about you, but in the past when I had to be absent, I would leave directions for the substitute and just kind of cross my fingers and hope it all worked out. Sometimes the subs wouldn't even tell the students what the assignments were, or maybe they would just say it once but not write it on the board. So now I just post the directions on Blackboard. So I'm just communicating directly with the students, and they know what to do while I'm out, and I'm no longer at the mercy of the substitute. Also, school disruptions. So this year we had, I think, 7 straight days of no school because of a big weather event. And I was able to continue some minor progress with my AP students over those snow days because there wasn't really a disruption in the internet. We just couldn't go to school. So I was able to send activities and assignments for the students to work on. It wasn't quite the same as 7 school days worth, but it was a little bit of progress. And really after 7 days of staying home, some of them thanked me that they had something to do. And they were glad that they weren't in a big rush once we got back to try to catch up. So that was a neat benefit there. Blackboard Collaborate, I'm hoping to start using that more and more. That's what we're using today. But wouldn't that be great for parent conferencing or study sessions before the big exam? Things like that. This year, actually, I have a couple of students who have recurring absences for health reasons. And I feel really good about being able to provide remote instruction for them when they're out of school. Some have to be out a week, every couple of months for treatments. And those students can, when they're feeling all right, they can click on the video lessons or work on a practice assignment. And it helps them to kind of stay connected. Even one absence can be a setback. And just last week, one young man thanked me because I posted a video and it resolved his confusion on balancing equations. After he watched it, he felt a whole lot better. So even just occasional absences can really put somebody behind, but if they know they can go online because the course is blended, then really for me, guilt-free teaching. That's the way I see it. It's just, everything is just clearly communicated and organized for the students. And each student has what they need to be successful. So I'm just hopefully setting the students up for success, and I can spend more of my class time with those students who need that one-on-one. So the blended approach I also love because it rewards students for being timely, and it's just Blackboard is a complete learning management system. It's a complete package. So I probably talked too fast, but I'm going closing up now. But before I do, I want to thank Hildy Pardo for all of her wonderful support as our APS distance learning specialist and our Blackboard support extraordinaire. She's given me such invaluable training. Thank you, Hildy, and support through this fun journey. I love learning new things. I'm a lifelong learner, of course, and this has all been so engaging and enjoyable. On this next slide, I'll show you I have a link. If you're interested, you can see a little 4-minute video of my classes in action. You can see them using their devices and working together in groups. And I wanted to be sure to thank Katie Gallagher and Ryan McLaughlin for being here today and giving me the opportunity to share with you. This has been a wonderful experience. And I'm wondering, do you have any questions for me? Thanks so much for your attention.
This has been fabulous, Stacey. I I am trying during the presentations, and I keep saying, oh, I need to get the quote from 9 minutes in. Now I need it from 11 minutes in. This was great. Um, Folks, we'd love for you to ask questions now. You can raise your hand, or it so that Stacey can call on you. You can use your microphone, unmute it to ask your question, or if you're more comfortable with it, you can certainly type it in the chat. But to get things started with the questions, I'll start with one, Stacey. How long does it take to renovate your teaching to turn it into a blended class if you're used to just more traditional teaching methods?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, because it probably seems pretty overwhelming when you see all these new things at once, but it really is something that I did gradually, piece by piece. I started with the testing software, but meanwhile, my colleague was working on the Blackboard Assignments, and we sort of collaborated and switched. And then actually, Hildy Pardo, she set us up with a Blackboard warehouse. So when we did make something that we wanted to share with the other students, the other teachers in our group, we posted it on our Blackboard warehouse. And that was just something that a site that the teachers shared. Then we found out that we had another colleague at another school in Arlington, Maggie Wiseman, and she also teaches chemistry. So we weren't even in the same building as Maggie, but she had recorded lots of video lessons, so she shared them with us. So you just do it piece by piece, unit by unit, and just keep growing. I mean, I don't really think I'm finished. I have lots more to learn and lots more tools and things that I hope to put in my course as I get there. So it's just a journey, you know. You can start next week. That's what I'd say.
Hey, Stacey, can you hear me?
Any other questions? Hello?
Do you hear me, Stacey?
I do. I hear you.
Okay, awesome. I saw that you did stuff like units that were sequential. Can you
Yes.
set it up so that they can't go on to lesson 2 without doing lesson number 1?
Yes, you can. I haven't actually used that feature yet, but I know that you can turn that on or turn that off as you see fit. It's called adaptive release.
Okay.
So you can add that feature as you're building your learning unit, so that, yeah, for example, I know you can maybe put in a point quiz and they can't see the next part and they've gotten a certain grade on the quiz, like 80% or something like that.
Oh, that would be great.
Thanks for your question. Oh, I see a question from Pamela. Miss Lockridge.
I have really enjoyed it. It's been very nice. And I wanted to tell you, I have a cold today, so I sound a little strange, but how long did it take you to set up your program to really get started, and how long does it take you to put the lessons on? How time consuming is it?
Well, I think, Pamela, I know you, and I know we all, I think, probably take the time that we have, you know, however much time we have. It's pretty flexible, so it just depends on what you want to do. If you can kind of envision a unit as maybe a whole week long, then it might take a little bit longer to set that up, or you could just set up one activity to start with. So I started just small. I started very, very small, and just started with maybe one activity. And then after I used it, maybe I modified it for the next year, and then I could use it again the next year, and maybe add another one onto it. So it, you know, as with anything, it takes the amount of time that you have to give it, right, basically, where your creativity is ready to go and your comfort level. I mean, I like to learn things bit by bit. I'm not very good at learning too many things at once.
Well, I
So
really
I
like.
started.
I really enjoyed it because I can see how it actually frees up the teacher to work with students who need more hands-on time. And when other students have that differentiation of learning, can go ahead and do what they need to do, and then the teacher working with those students who may need time to work one-on-one with the teacher. So I really enjoyed your session today.
Well, thank you. I'm so glad you joined me. It's been it's great to hear your comments. I can tell you in validation of what you're saying that even just today, as the students were working, I was looking at their work that they turned in recently, and a lot of them were very successful. So I checked it off. They made the checkpoint. But then a few students, they had missed some things that were really crucial to that particular purpose of that assignment. And so I was able to kind of pull them aside and work with them individually. And it's so gratifying to be able to do that. So I agree. It is wonderful to be able to differentiate like that. Thank you. Are there any other questions?
I think Mary had one about, do you worry about students looking up things on the computer and giving tests?
Oh, I hear there's a question about testing. Do I worry about, when I'm giving tests in class, do I worry about students opening up another tab and looking things up? And that's of course a very important thing to keep in mind. It is important that you can see their computers. So I generally stand behind them so I can see their screens as they're testing to make sure they're on the right tab. Yeah, I think that is important to be able to supervise that. Did that answer your question? Thank you, Mary. Oh, thank you.
I've got one more. Do you make all of your own videos and tests?
Katie, no, I don't make all of my own videos. There are some that I feel like, I'm really good at, and I like the way I do it better than the way anybody else does it. So then I would be sure to record those videos. And another thing about recording my own is they never get rejected by the firewall. Sometimes we have a firewall problem in our county. So YouTube videos, sometimes they get rejected. So it's actually safer when I make my own, but there are some great videos on YouTube, Crash Course Chemistry, some other videos I do like to pull in that are better than what I can do. So no, it's about 50, I think, but maybe 60-40 that I make my own. Oh, that's right. Hildy's reminding me. The other teachers are also making videos. I use Maggie's videos a lot. So we do collaborate.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Wanted to share a story from a parent who thanks you.
Oh, yes. I did have a parent who thanked me as well. Her son has some special needs, and she felt like she was able to help him target his learning because of the information that was on Blackboard and how accessible it was to her. So I didn't mention that. And I did have some closing comments if we're ready, if there's no more questions. I just wanted to tell a little story about when I was a student teacher many years ago. As you know, I teach chemistry, and my mentor teacher gave me some advice. He sat me down and he gave me some advice, and he used an analogy, not the traffic cop analogy, but another one. He said, Stacey, your goal as a teacher is to be a catalyst. He says, you want to affect change without getting used up in the process. And I've always held those words close. And I do think that by blending the learning this way, it's a great mechanism for accomplishing this, for being that catalyst that affects change in students without getting used up myself. So thank you, everybody, for being here, attending, and for your great questions.
Thank you so much, Stacey. So if there are additional questions or comments, please add them to the chat or raise your hand. But with that, we'll move forward with a couple closing slides. Wanted to thank Stacey and Hildy and Pat for their support with today's session. If you'd like to present in the fall or you have a topic that you'd like to see in the fall, please reach out to me on Twitter at @1KatieGallagher or by email katie.gallagher@blackboard.com. We're always looking for new ideas. Again, remember that registration for BB World is open. While it's not in DC this summer, it's in Vegas. We are building the most robust program ever. We'd love to see each and every one of you there participating with us this summer. And with that, we'll call it a day. We'll hang on for a minute or so in case there are any last minute questions. But thank you all so much, and especially thank you to you, Stacey, for a great presentation.